My name is Brian Gary, U.S. History teacher at Southside High School in Lafayette Parish. All my students are 10th grade AP U.S. History students. We've been studying the consequences of westward expansion and manifest destiny. Today, we will analyze the rise and the fall of the populist movement. We will also test the hypothesis The Wizard of Oz is not just a children's story, but a parable in the populist movement. Once complete, students will understand the need for political and social reform, which will ultimately lead to the progressive movement. We will begin by individually completing a document analysis of William Jennings Bryan's Cross of Gold speech, which can be found on Google Classroom. Next, as a whole group, we will introduce the birth of populism with a quick discussion on Google Slides. Students will then stand and move about the class for what we call a quick collaboration, discussing The Wizard of Oz and the populist movement. We will use informal grouping to complete a Google form testing our hypothesis on The Wizard of Oz. Next, I will chuck a 4-minute video on Henry Littlefield's thesis. Finally, to check for comprehension, students must individually defend, refute, or modify a claim based on our learning goals. This powerful lesson generally provokes enthusiasm and 100% engagement. I hope it provokes some thought. Enjoy. Our bell word today is a primary source called the Cross of Gold. It was a speech given at the Democratic National Convention by a man named William Jennings Bryan. I don't expect you to know him right now, but you will. Okay? Now, we know the farmers are in trouble. Riley, why? What's the matter with the farmers?
The railroad?
Railroads? Yes. Who can give me another reason? Yeah.
Surplus of crops.
Surplus of crops. Overproduction. What has that done to prices? It has lowered prices, so the farmers are pressing the federal government to increase the money supply, which they refuse to do because of the gold standard. So farmers say, let's move to 2 metals. What's the word I'm looking for? Bimetallism, meaning we're going to have our money supply backed by gold and silver. This is where William Jennings Bryan comes in, and this is where the Cross of Gold speech comes in. Before we do anything, let's take a look at the introduction. I'll read it out loud, you follow along. It says, in rousing speech to the Democratic Convention in 1896, William Jennings Bryan defended the farmer as the backdrop of the American civilization and called for the free coinage of silver to help the indebted farmer by expanding the money supply. His emotional address so impressed the delegation at the convention that they nominated Bryan, who served just 2 terms in the House of Representatives, as their candidate for president. In this excerpt from his famous Cross of Gold speech, Bryan demands that bimetallism, or the use of both silver and gold, be adopted to increase the money supply. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to create a Google Doc. I want you to give it a read, and then I want you to look at the question document, and I want you to answer the 3 questions. Make sure you prove it with evidence from the source. Make your claim and prove it. I'll give you about 8 minutes. Now, he focuses on the Cross of Gold. We know that the Cross of Gold is the burden bringing down the farmers. Correct? Trinity, what did you put as the Cross of Gold?
I put the Cross of Gold as the gold money. He's referring to bimetallism. It is the gold standard followed by the English and close to repeating itself in America, which would destroy the farmers. Fantastic.
If you don't have the word gold standard, please put that on. As I walked around, I saw the gold coinage. Gold standard is what he's talking about. That is the Cross of Gold that is bringing down our farmers. Back one of the major party candidates. Well, they already know the Republicans were gold bugs, but most of the Democrats were bimetallists. The Democrats didn't have a candidate. And that is when This man by the name of William Jennings Bryan gave an impassioned speech at the Democratic National Convention. Guess what speech he gave? The Cross of Gold speech. And the Democrats say, hey, we got our guy. And the populists say, oh my God, that's our guy. So you got the populists and the Democrats rallying behind William Jennings Bryan. Question is, who won? Can anybody predict the outcome of the election of 1896? Who do you think's going to win? Huh? Why?
You have all the Democrats vote for him, and you have all the farmers vote for him.
That is fantastic. You have all the populists, you have all the Democrats. So let's see who wins. By the way, this is William Jennings Bryan. That's a famous political cartoon about the Cross of Gold speech. Again, guys, you already know this. I just put this up here to reinforce the issue. By the way, it's important that I tell you, the Republicans selected William McKinley to run for president. The big question was, who's going to win? You said, Bryan? Let's look at the map and find out. Y'all know Cross of Gold speech. This is the election of 1896. Red is Republican, McKinley. Blue is Democrat. Who won? It looks like the Democrats won. Who got the big states? The Republicans won. William McKinley wins. William Jennings Bryan, the Democrats and the populists lose. What is the significance? Gold. So what happens to populism? It's done. It's over. It's dead. So I know what you're thinking, Coach, why in the world are we talking about this if nothing happened? Because it's the consequence of the populist movement. There's two. First, it proved that any group can organize and promote change. Second thing, we need political, social, and economic reform. Think back to the Populist Party platform. Didn't we get all that? Didn't we get all that? Yes, because out of this movement comes the need for reform, which we're going straight into next, something called the progressive movement. So you look at learning goal number 2, analyze the rise and the fall of populism. It's easy, but it's the consequence of the movement. And that's what we'll see next time. So what happens next? Wizard of Oz? I admit, I'm only setting you up. I'm only setting you up. We know the Wizard of Oz?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody knows the Wizard of Oz. What is it?
It's like a movie.
Not about, no, it is a book and it's a movie, but what is it? Who's it for? It's a children's movie, right? Or is it? What if I told you, now hold on to your seats here. What if I told you The Wizard of Oz was not a children's book, but it was a parable and a satire of the populist movement? I believe it. Now, well, hold on. You're smarter than you think you are because you're going to figure this out. We're going to do a quick collaboration like we normally do. We're going to stand up and we're going to pick each other's brain. Here's what we're going to be discussing. Predict how The Wizard of Oz could be a satire or a parable of the populist movement. Couple things I want you to think about. Think about where. Come back to whole group. I heard some fantastic discussion. All right, who wants to be brave and give me an example how this could be a parable? Yes.
The yellow brick road. She has to follow the yellow brick road. With the yellow brick road is the gold.
Gold. Okay, that's a start. Yes, Trinity.
Dorothy started out in Kansas, and then she got taken to the yellow brick road and realized in the end all she needed was to go home, so it's like the farm was.
Well, you said two things that sparked my imagination. Okay, I know we still have some disbelievers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a Google form with you on Google Classroom, and we're going to turn and we're going to get into our informal groups. I want you to make a copy of that, and all we're doing is check off boxes. Check yes, check no. That's it. And it's going to shock you. All right, get into your informal groups. Have about 2 minutes. So what I want to do is I want to chunk a little 4.5 minute video. This video is going to excite some of you. This video may upset some of you. But it is fantastic. And by the end of this video, there will be no doubt about Henry Littlefield's thesis. So bring your laptops to half-staff, please. This is called The Wizard of Oz, Social Commentary on the Populist Movement. Oz, just a children's story, or is it a parable on the populist movement? We had disbelievers before. Any disbelievers now? So, all we did today, we looked at the problems of the 1890s, of the farmers and the workers, and we analyzed the rise and the fall of the populist movement. We tested our hypothesis about the Wizard of Oz. We get it, right? And the importance is, this is what's going to lead to a reform movement called the Progressive Era. And that's where we're going next. But now we have to prove it. So, under your Google Doc about William Jennings Bryan, I'm going to show you a claim. This is the claim. McKinley's election in 1896 ended the Populist Party in all hopes of populist reform. Defend it, refute it, or modify it. The lesson is now complete, and judging by students' reactions and responses on the comprehension writing, it was an overwhelming success. Students were in awe of the exercise on the Wizard of Oz, and one even accused me of trying to ruin his childhood memories. I only wish we had more time to connect it to present day. Some call President Trump and other leaders true progressives. Maybe this can be a follow-up assignment. The planning and delivery of this lesson turned the rather boring topic of populism into a memory students won't soon forget. They get the political and social problems of the time and will ultimately understand the need for reform. Next stop, the progressive movement.